Everybody here to the ESC County Board work session. I want to remind everybody that this is a work session, which means that the board has the opportunity to talk amongst themselves and ask questions of the administration. We're gonna talk tonight about the sections of the elementary and TK, PK, whatever we want to call that. I'd like to kind of start this off tonight as we've got a lot of information in front of us, some of which we had before, some of which we didn't. My thoughts are, after I see this, these numbers of parents who were called, looks to me like we've got roughly 15 students who would like to be in transitional kindergarten, or their parents would like them to. And I don't understand. Did you pass this one out, Dr. Bean?
I got it from Mike. We'll probably
call him. So yeah, I've got a question here on the where it says kindergarten 18, add 8 who are currently in TK. Does that mean that there's 26, Mike, or does that mean there's 18 with the 8?
Where are you at, Chris?
I'm on this page here, Mike. Shorter.
Okay, that would be 9 in that requested transitional kindergarten. That would leave 18. You would add the 8, and you get the 26. That
Okay,
so 26.
So there are 26.
So even with the 9 gone, there'd be 26 in that section.
26 in kindergarten. Oh, okay, I see over on the side.
Yeah.
You got that already spelled out
Yeah.
for me. Sorry about that.
Well, that's okay. Sometimes I'm hard to follow.
And those 9 and 6, Mike, on that same chart, those are, just to clarify, when parents of current preschoolers were called, those are the ones that requested it, or would request it.
That requested it, yes.
Okay, it doesn't include, or does it include those that have been recommended from the preschool teacher?
No, I didn't put that in there.
That's okay. I was just clarifying what the list was.
We have 12. We had identified 12. 7 of those 12 that were identified wanted in. I mean, agreed to be in. One was I don't know yet. We couldn't contact one. We didn't. There was no contact. And 3 said no. We wanted our child to go to kindergarten.
Even though you recommended that they go to the TK.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, you betcha.
Yeah, I got it.
Not a 585, that's what it said you sent. Receiving different time. 569.
Okay, so I think, there's a couple of different things that we want to get done here tonight. We want to definitely talk about transitional kindergarten. And, my thoughts on transitional kindergarten are, if we have 15 people who are requesting it, I think it's something that we certainly should look into having again. I know we've talked about not having it. There's some information here that says we don't have to have it, and that would help save a teacher position. If we do have it, it wouldn't cost us a position. We've already got that position there. So, if there's 15 people who are requesting it, I think it's definitely worth looking at doing again. That's my personal opinion. And I certainly don't want to be the one that talks the whole time at this thing. So.
Okay, so just because I'm a couple minutes late here, 15 is the total number?
Okay, so here on this page right here in the middle, this is what we've talked about so far. If you look at the top there, 9 students or 9 parents would like their student to go to transitional kindergarten.
This is from, that's just from the Sac City building.
Right.
Okay.
So then that would leave a total of 26 kids for next year's kindergarten in Sac City,
Okay,
which is at the right of that column there, yep, right where you're at.
okay.
And then go down from there, and 6 parents would like to have their student at transitional kindergarten, which would leave 45 students in kindergarten in the Wally building. So that leaves a total of 15 students for transitional kindergarten.
Which is a lot less than, what did we have this year?
Quite a few, I think, I don't know.
Enough to warrant 2 classes, right?
Instead of being in Wall Lake and
Yeah.
So 29,
And we were successful in getting a hold of a lot of them.
I think for the most part, Mike, weren't the gals able to get through?
Good.
I mean,
Pretty much.
handful of it.
One thing that, that I think you, as board members, you need to understand is, you know, don't get too wrapped up in the numbers, because when we, in that conversation, the secretaries, when they were contacting people, they asked if they would be interested if it was at one site or the other. Those numbers would change significantly depending on where,
It is.
right, on both sides. I mean, on the 9 and the 6.
So is that basically what you're saying, is if there was one site for TK, those numbers aren't going to be accurate, and all of those aren't going to follow through? Whether it's in
Not,
Wall
not
Lake or-
from the conversations we had.
Fair enough.
I didn't know that we wanted to.
No, that's enough. Got it.
Now back, if they're requested, are they, does that include the ones that are requested by Deanna, by the kindergarten? That you suggested go into,
Right, okay,
You know
so
what
the
you call-
12, yeah.
Wouldn't seven
Did-
of them? be
Seven of them
accounted
would have been in that number, yes. And I don't know exactly.
for? What the breakout between buildings, we don't know that.
I'd have to look, I have it, but I'd have to dig a little.
So that would, it's looking like then, we currently have 1 kindergarten and 2 kindergarten. Do we have 2 kindergarten down at the other building?
It's 2 sections of everything in
Yes.
that building.
Okay, so we would keep that again for next year potentially? I mean, or would you go up another one? No. It'd be 22 students per class in a kindergarten
And
class.
if you look at this sheet here, the 3rd grade this year has 22 and a half, whatever you want to say,
So
22
that's
or
kind of
23.
probably the tipping point, kind of. I mean, we discussed that it was kind of a
For-
high number this year here, 25 students was kind of.
For first grade?
No, kindergarten.
For kindergarten. I think, and Mike, you can jump in, but I mean, that's getting up there for sure. I guess my take has always been is that probably, if there's a magic number not to exceed 18, would probably be a better number.
That's what I'm saying, so say we had all the money in the world, it would be nice to have 3
Oh,
teachers
yeah.
down there.
Yeah,
Because we're at 22 per class.
yeah, that would.
And we already know we have to add another one into the, so that puts our kindergarten at 26 here for next year. Plus, we wanted to divide them that are in kindergarten now into 2, which we already have the teachers for, I understand, but we're taking a class that was 1 teacher going to 2 teachers.
Yep. If that's what the decision would be.
So what do you guys think about the 22, the number 22 for down there?
Well, you know, when you look at it, I mean, there's 22 students in each class down there, and most classes have 20 in it, the way it looks to me down there. So, you know, my thought is a couple more isn't that big a deal. And then, are these numbers like, on this sheet here, it says first grade 25, is that for this year?
These are next year's
No.
numbers.
These are next year's.
This year's kindergarten would be represented in first grade on that,
Okay.
on that spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So we would be basically looking at splitting the 26 that are going into as a class of 13 and 13 for next year's kindergarten
In
class.
kindergarten.
Is there any way to, probably not because the bus probably isn't there, is there any way to get any of those kids down here to kind of lessen the load down there?
Yeah, we've already got 45 and down there, so that's,
Into two sections, but instead of 22 in each class, taking 3, bringing 6 or 7 students down here and
Up here.
splitting them.
Go up here.
Okay.
That's what's.
North.
Then,
North.
then,
a little bit confusing.
Yeah.
yeah,
Then we would be,
then, yeah.
it would be, we'd be more even, you're not
You're trying
putting
to balance is what you're
so
after.
much on the teachers down there, and where they get way more one-on-one here.
Then we
at 13.
then we could keep one teacher up here for the first grade and move 3 kids down there, and each section down at Wall Lake would have 18, 19. If we're gonna, I mean,
Right.
if you're talking about moving kids around like that. If you want, that's.
That's definitely logical thinking.
Right now, they have 16 in their first grade, or will have next year,
Next year, they have 6.
16, 16, so
Okay.
take 5 off that first grade up here at SAC.
We'd have 13 and 12, say, right?
If
16,
you
16,
split
13, and
it up.
12, if we had to, but yeah,
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
But if,
Take 2 students from here and make it 14 and
no, just have one section up
just
here.
have one section up here.
You don't know, 18 or 19.
Yeah,
So 8, if we took out 8, then we could get 17, 17.
19, 19. 19. That's it.
That's hard to do.
I'm sure
too.
some of the, well, that first grade next year has some IEPs in it, correct, Mike?
Most likely.
Yeah. So they will have one-on-one there, so that teacher would have help.
Seems to me there's a couple of things, and there's not gonna be an easy answer truthfully. One is trying to always remember to do what's best for kids, and it's obviously better in an elementary section to have 18 kids than it is 25. There's no arguing, and that's the right thing to do for that, but then you have to balance in the financial implications, that we don't live in a perfect world. And there's X amount of resources, and trying to, you have to think about both of those at the same time. I know we always profess to talk about business in the best interest of kids, but that also does have to be tempered with reality. And so you have to talk finances as this unfolds, would be my suggestion.
And then where do finances come into play? I mean, we'd have to know what it's gonna take to do all this switching around, if that were even an option, or that, you know.
Well, I think we talk in logic right now, but as we get closer and closer to it, emotions are gonna take over. I mean, let's be honest. A parent from Wall Lake is probably not gonna wanna put a kid on a bus from Wall Lake to come up here to Sac City, and vice versa.
Right,
I
mine's
mean,
gonna be one of the first graders, I'm thinking,
Yep.
should I slip her on the bus to go down there to ensure that she gets to be in it? But then she doesn't know any of the kids down there, and then she comes back next year to all the friends, you know, where does that fall into? What's the most important thing is that they get the best education possible, it's not about, but.
It's all part of it.
Yeah, when we start talking about that in education, what does that do to a 6 or 7-year-old kid to go to a school where they don't have any friends?
They don't know anybody, yeah.
Not that they don't have any friends, but they don't know anybody.
For the most part, I would have to say, I know mine would be fine, because they're so little. But, you know, a lot of other things come into play here too. We're looking at saving money, and we still want what's best for the children. Eventually, I'm guessing they're all gonna be together someday.
Yeah.
None of us, you know, that's gonna be a very touchy thing too, I get that.
And if you
I
do
look-
move kids back and forth, then, you know, you do have additional transportation, because we're really not equipped with our transportation currently to do that. What goes between Sac City and Lakeview, and then eventually on over to Wall Lake, is really designed for middle school. And I'm no longer a parent of a first grader, but I don't want my first grader put on a bus with all of the middle school kids going. And I'm guessing that would be pretty
They learn words.
uniform. Yeah,
You learn lots of things.
Learn those things fast enough.
What a van, what's the biggest vehicle that we have available for something that, I mean, or does it have to be a bus?
I think that, I think you have transportation law in there about size of how many people you can put in a van in high school. I know you see the big vans in college and things like that. I believe high school is a whole different gamut. I think
7 in a minivan, 8 in a full-size van, and 9 in a Suburban, including the driver.
So, I mean, the numbers that we're talking here, a smaller vehicle could do that, right?
You still have the cost of a driver. you just have to-
Right, right. I mean, but
I'm not arguing it, those are just, you have to
the-
include everything.
The gas would be cheaper, correct? I
Oh,
mean-
yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah, I'm sure that nobody's gonna jump to that and say, I volunteer my kid to be the one. I love seeing a smaller class size though, I just do.
Yeah, I think we all would like to see that. I think it just, you know, it's not a perfect world.
I mean, if it were a perfect world, we're really talking about adding 3 staff to make it a perfect world. Would that be accurate?
Or the numbers are
They
a
have
little
to,
different. I mean,
Right.
The cost of an FTE, FICA and IPERS and benefits, 50.
And then 45 to 50 for a beginning teacher. Yep.
okay, I have a question, and this is,
Not that we would hire a beginner, but that
Right,
is a
right.
ballpark.
so, I know we're not onto the 4th grade yet, and where those sections will be, or what we'll do with that. But does it make any more sense to make a big change and try to combine some things like we're talking with the 4th grade and fill a bus full and bring them over? Do you know what I mean?
I do.
If there's
And anything's
space
open
here.
for discussion, it's the time to throw out ideas.
So that they're all together, and then as a class, they might stay down there next year, but say they're all together and the teachers can teach together, we can split up appropriately, so the teachers are in the same building, which helps a lot of things. And if we would have this space here, and then we don't have a mixture of middle school with really little kids, it would be 4th grade, kids if they're around that age anyway.
Yeah, if you had, using the 4th grade as an example, and it's on the bottom of the spreadsheet, that if they were under one roof, you'd have an average class size of 21. And then to complicate it even further, yeah, there's space in this building, but now you're also talking about transporting 40 kids. You take 25 from here and go that direction. You're transporting fewer kids.
Mhm.
This is complicated stuff. Yeah, it really is.
And there is space down there also?
There could be. Yeah, would it be a third? John, my 3rd floor would be about the only option for another classroom. Unless there was, the PK wasn't there, then there would be a classroom, which is on the 1st floor. So yes, there's space. Would it be?
Comparable to here is my question. I mean, I guess maybe that's opinion-based, but.
I would say size-wise, yes. Newness, of course not. Yeah.
But like heating, cooling probably being the biggest thing, right? That would be
Yeah.
on the 3rd.
Well, classrooms on this aren't cooled either. The center part is cool.
Right, or maybe I'm thinking of high school. What was it, the 3rd floor? Do we have a 3rd floor in high school?
There is.
Yeah.
When it was so hot
Yes,
last
yes,
year, it was
yes.
so like,
Yes, yes,
obviously the
yes.
higher up you go.
Yes. don't mean to confound things, but if we're putting everything out as ideas, brainstorming, those are considerations.
And that's what we need to do, talk about absolutely every option, whether it's the only way we're gonna get to.
Yeah, so, and we talked about a few things already. I don't know where we wanna start or where we wanna end, but I think we need to stay on probably one topic and I'm not saying anything bad, about what we've talked about already. Don't take it that way. I think what we need to do is try to figure out what we wanna know for TK, and then move to first and fourth grade after that.
The other thing that I think you ought to consider, at least have on the table to consider, is the philosophy that drives, I still call it pre-kindergarten, but transitional kindergarten. And again, we've given you a couple different versions of that. Might give you a little article to read and those types of things. And then again, in the spirit of openness and bluntness, you know, this is my 4th year here, and this is the 3rd year that we've talked about what the PK program or the TK program looks like. Hasn't really evolved into an identity. And at some point, we really need to make a decision about what is the purpose of that program, so that we're not making this decision every year. Mike, would you agree?
Yeah. When we went to Adele a few years ago, when we first started the TK program, we pretty much had a philosophy in mind of helping some of our students that were academically in need. And we've kind of wandered from, and Angela with me, down to Adele. I mean, we've kind of wandered away from that philosophy. I mean, and you know, if I had to do it all, you learn lessons, and one of the things that they had said was, you know, keep your process in the forefront, because if you don't, your program will grow out of control, and then you'll be exactly where we sit right now.
And I'm not advocating what I'm about to say, so everybody understands that, but, you know, I did some reading over the weekend about the whole early childhood article, as well as a couple other things, and, you know, there is a consideration, again, not advocating this, there is a consideration that, and I guess I would ask then for Mike to take my question a little bit further. Nothing says that you have to have a transitional kindergarten program. They could be moved into a kindergarten program and have it potentially develop a 2-year curriculum for kindergarten. Again, I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying it would be an option. And if you look at the financial piece of that, you would take the 2 current transitional kindergarten teachers and they would move into one of the first grade position, whatever, you know. And if you're looking at it from a financial perspective, that one makes a lot of sense. Is that best for kids? Is that best for families? That's all needs to be talked about, but we don't have to have a TK program.
How many years did we go without one?
4 years ago was our first one, wasn't it, Mike? My first year.
And before that, that didn't exist.
But we did have a 2-year preschool program.
Although the preschool program there was options to be in there for 2 years, and that
Isn't there anymore, right?
when that all changed to the 4-year-olds.
Right.
Back when I was in kindergarten, there was a transitional, they called it transitional first, right? That was before, no, that was, what was that? Do you
That's correct, transitional first.
So it was between kindergarten and first grade, though?
It was between first and second, wasn't it?
I think it was between kindergarten and first grade.
It would be a situation where first graders were held back, whatever that means.
Again, I'm not advocating that, but again, in the spirit of, there's a lot of options here that need to be kind of weighted.
So 4 years ago, what made you guys just wanting to be able to offer more for
Yeah,
those
why'd you
children?
guys start this? I'm just
were
teasing.
here,
Just saying.
Because I voted on it.
You guys have been here and gone through this.
I'm
I
pretty sure
have
I'm one of the
not, so-
reasons here, so.
Do you wanna, I'll let the teacher speak to this. I was with her and
Right, and that would be great.
It really, it's a great program to have, I mean, not just so I can have my job, but, I have kids in there that I see that I know if they would've went to kindergarten this year, it would've been a whole different situation. I mean, to speak of one kid, he came in knowing one letter, and he is now knows all the letters but one, so he's got 25 letters down, he knows the sounds, he knows his colors, he knows the shapes, and I don't know if he would have got as much support, because in kindergarten, they wouldn't be focused on the letters, and that he would have to be doing the words and the writing the sentences, and I don't think he would have flourished as much, and it kind of saddens me that if we were to go away from that, there would be kids that are going to struggle when they get pushed into kindergarten, and if you do go to kindergarten, it would need to be a process where you're not doing the same thing 2 years in a row. So you are gonna have to have, where the kindergarten teachers are gonna have to have a process where either one teacher is teaching one thing and the other one, then you switch rooms, or you're gonna have a 2-year program where 1 year we teach this, the next year we teach that, so they're not getting the same thing and they're gonna get bored.
I've heard that several times from teachers, that this is a really good transition. That's, I guess, why they call it transitional kindergarten, for kids who really need it.
And the stickler to that is the identifying piece. I mean, and that's why when they said be true to the process. Unfortunately, there's some students or some children that are 13, 14, or 15, 16 that don't, I mean, you can only put so many in that room, and
So 13, 14 meaning the top 12 or the, or
yeah,
whatever 12 go,
12 or
13
15 or
14.
whatever you
Right.
want. I mean, you want to keep your numbers low, but there's always going to be a 16, and and that's a hard thing. I mean, that's why I have a team that helps give me information on offering to certain people. And we just go by numbers. I mean, we really do. I mean,
There's some teacher input from the preschool in those
Yeah,
discussions
yeah.
and whatnot, and it's
Yeah.
my understanding of goal assessment that there's some measure of maturity and whatnot somewhere down the line,
Yeah.
but primarily we're talking about
there's a process
kids
there.
that need to get to 25 letters before they get to,
I understood your example as far as the PK not, if it wasn't there, then somebody's gonna be jumped into kindergarten that might not be ready. That was your example. If PK didn't exist, that student would be in preschool, correct?
No, they go to kindergarten.
They
No, it didn't exist, they'd already be in preschool. That'd be their class they'd be in right now. Not the next year.
Oh,
The year that exists right when they're going to school.
Well, the ones that are in preschool right now,
Right.
you're talking about they're either gonna go to pre-K or they're gonna go to kindergarten.
But I'm
There's no
saying if pre-K didn't exist, you could take preschool again?
No, they've stopped that.
that's what changed when it became the state,
My
they're
kids
voluntary,
went
whatever
to 2
it's
years
called.
of kindergarten, and but they needed that. I was happy to have that, so.
You can, if you want to fill that program up. My concern with that is, now, we're starting to see more and more 3-year-olds in our 4-year-old program. And that's by law. I mean, they can get in. And when you start talking a 3-year-old versus a old 5-year-old, you're really starting to get a diverse group of kids.
It has to be.
I'd rather see that diverse group of kids in kindergarten rather than you know, I'd rather see the 5, you see what I'm talking about, Brent, I'd rather see the 5 to 6s in kindergarten instead of a 3 to 5 span in preschool.
Right.
They can come in a little bit earlier than 3 years old too.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Sorry to complicate things.
No,
But that
doesn't
makes
make it
sense.
any
That makes
easier.
sense, though. I mean, not having, you know, as far as,
I just wonder where we're gonna be in 15 years.
15, I'll give them 5.
I wish I could help you with that, Chris.
Mike, are my numbers right that we have 86 5-year-olds next year? 45, 26, and 15.
Yeah.
And we currently have 5 staff members.
Well, I'm hoping my numbers are all correct there, yeah.
For that group. That's 17 kids per group.
Five staff with 2 TK and 3.
I'm just talking currently hired, we have
Right now.
5
Yeah.
staff members
Yeah,
for
yeah.
what next year will be 86 kids, which is 17 kids per section, if they were broken out evenly. From the financial standpoint, that number makes sense, from my desk.
17?
I
Yeah.
mean,
But that's reasonable is what you're saying.
yeah, I mean, when we start, 12 in the classroom isn't gonna be sustainable very long
No.
for a school district. And I get the problem with the opposite end, the 25. We could have 20 in every section, we'd make money and we'd be happy. But I just, when you just look at the group of 5-year-olds, you divide by 4 staff members, you're over 21 students staff. That's probably not gonna work at that age. At 5, you're around 17, and at 6, you're down to 14. I really think that's kind of the decision we have to make, because these numbers are gonna change.
Yeah.
And
I'm just
the number-
afraid, and I'm not advocating anything, I'm just afraid that once a site is decided, that number might change, and that 45 might grow to 50.
Mhm.
Or that 9 might, or that 26 might grow to 31. And I agree with Kevin too. I mean, I know this is difficult, but are we gonna come back next year in April and sit in this room and do this again? I mean, I think I remember being in here last year, about the same month, and people were in different seats maybe.
I think I was right here.
I think Amanda was right here.
Get over there, but
And the other thing too is that, and again, whatever is decided is decided, I understand that. But I know that vacillating back and forth on the program each year puts parents in a very difficult situation. That if you plan accordingly and then all of a sudden it's changed, that really is not fair to parents either.
so what we're really trying to decide here right now tonight, I mean, not vote on or whatever, but is whether or not we want a TK program. Yes? Or not necessarily?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the options, and I would say that with all the discussion that we've had here tonight, with the discussions that I've had with several parents and teachers, I think we need a TK.
Right.
And I honestly don't have a problem with the TK being in this building.
Because we already know that we need to, for the 26 kids that are gonna be here, right? We all agree that 26 is too much for one.
I don't know that we've really discussed that. I mean, I haven't just.
How do you feel about 26
I haven't.
with one teacher?
Yeah, I mean, I don't particularly care for that in kindergarten.
We had 25 this year.
Right, and so is one more gonna be that big of a deal for that teacher? She can probably handle it, but I don't.
She will, is she, Tiff's not here?
No, she's not here.
Her mother is.
She's not here, this levy was
You know,
out.
she has said with this group of kids, amazingly enough, it was doable. Take the group that she had last year and pump that number up to 25, there is no way she could have done it. So it all depends on what kids you have. And
Class makes a big
completely,
difference.
there's no way she could have handled, well, I guess it wasn't last year's, it was the ones that are in second grade now, the grade that my other child is in. They weren't a handful.
And back to what you said, and maybe see if I get this right. Seems to me you have three options dealing with the TK. No program, one section and one site, or just two sections, and when they're full, they're full. Seems to me that encapsulates the three options that the board will have.
When they're full, they're
Yes.
full, so that meaning that we don't say who can or cannot, we don't.
We would make the recommend, this would be my perspective, Mike can correct me, but if that was the situation, I still think it ought to be an invitation for kids that we believe are academically would benefit from that, and then if you have 12 to 14 spaces in each site, when those spaces are filled, then it's open for parent choice.
Gotcha.
And currently, if we did it that way,
That right? That's
had a section in Wall Lake and a section in Sac, and we had 12 to 14 students in each of those sections, that wouldn't cost us any more money next year than it did this year.
right.
So that would not have any effect on our budget.
At that grade level, no.
At that grade, right.
But if we go down to one, we're saying we're gonna limit it, correct?
Means we would gain back the cost of a teacher that could be placed elsewhere, yes, that is
Right.
with me.
Take that teacher and put them in first grade at, or kindergarten at Sac.
Can I ask how you feel about that, limiting the amount of kids that go?
Me? That's how we had it before,
Before,
when we first started it. We only
And
had
then we
12 to
changed?
15, and we changed it this last year, when we had so many on the list, and that's why we had a second teacher.
This is the first year we've had a
This
section
is
of
the first year we
both,
had
right?
two sections, yes. Before, we only had 12 to 15 kids.
At one,
Okay.
And we-
one
and
site.
one
It was
site.
here, right?
Well, when I very first started, I
Oh,
did
okay.
half days, I did one,
Right.
a half day in the morning, half day in the afternoon.
Because it was a half-day program when we
But-
started, wasn't it?
But we ran into transportation issues that parents did not like it because they couldn't get their kids picked up, whatever. So we went to a full day. And then we decided this was a site, that was a discussion that we had. And then last year, the big thing was that there were so many, so then we split up into two sections.
You're right, thank you. That's
so I have a question on the
exactly right.
all-day thing. How do you feel about them being there all day? Because the kindergarten, it's an issue being a parent, getting kids back and forth in the middle of the day. I mean, the same thing that would have probably been. So we decided to go all day. They're handling it just fine, you would say?
Yes, and my recommendation as the teacher would not go back to
Half a day, because you wouldn't get what you
I
needed.
see so much more out of them, I get more out of them being a full day, and we do take breaks. We can take a break if they get tired.
Mhm.
We can have a rest time if we need. This year I don't need a rest time, they're going the whole day.
And you know that after you're with
Yes.
them for a while, you know what
Yes,
you're
they're going
taking.
the whole day, so.
But so that I'm clear, it was limited, okay, back to when we just had one section.
What they did is they did exactly what we want to go back to. It went to the beginning garden teachers, looked at the assessments that said, here are our kids we recommend for pre-K. These are the kids that should go to kindergarten. We took it to the parents, made the recommendations. Parents said yes or no. We filled it up to a certain amount. If there was anything left over, parents that wanted to go to pre-K, that didn't fit in that, could go.
Gotcha.
And we filled it up to 12 to 15.
And if you want to limit numbers in TK, go back to a half day, because those numbers will just fall off the chart.
Yeah.
They'll fall down
And
really
it's
fast.
not the best for kids either.
No,
Yeah.
that's what I was wondering, having not had a children or a child in it. So,
What happened in the scenario if you had 18 kids that should have been in the TK program?
that the teacher recommended, right?
Yes.
That would have to be, the team would have to make the decision and then it'd go to the parents.
You still went,
You still
I
cut
have-
down
I-
that magic number.
I've asked the preschool teachers to give me a list of students that they felt needed to go. Then I have a spreadsheet with all of our preschool kids on it and all of their AP scores and FAST, everything that all the assessments that we do at preschool. And I have a list now from 1 to 16 or 18 with those teachers' recommendations in there also that, kind of maneuvered in there in those scores. And it's kind of like, again, it's kind of like a triage. We'd offer it to that first person on the list. If they'd say yes, it'd be great. And as I said, there's 3 of them that have already said no out of that list of 12. They don't want that. Well, I don't feel comfortable saying, well, really, you need this, because I don't have any, read the research, I don't have any research that said this definitely is going to make the impact that you want. But it is an opportunity that we're giving. And then it just keeps
All you can
going
do is
down the
show
line.
them,
till you get
all
the-
you can do is show them the data and
Yeah.
let them make a choice,
Yeah,
is what you're saying.
We do a very good job of, we have all the preschool students' data on a sheet in numbers. And we would say, Jay, your son or daughter is
No, it would have been Jay at that time.
is number 18. So you look at the bar graph and then you look at the other 20-some students and see where their bar graphs are at and say, oh, okay, let me think about this. And then that's how we work through it, basically. Now, Adele did a battery of testing. I mean, I still have the tests that they used, and it's a little bit different than what we use, so. But then they did the same triage thing.
How do the kindergarten teachers feel about the transition kids that do the transition? Do you feel better about them coming in? It's been beneficial?
It's been very beneficial. They're more prepared for kindergarten. And it's pretty obvious, the ones that are recommended for pre-K or TK that don't go, a lot of times we have to recommend them to be retained, because every once in a while somebody will really catch up, but that lagging a lot of times follows them through kindergarten.
Number-wise, do you think there needs to be a cap on it?
I remember sitting in your seat and the thing that worries me is I think we have a couple of families that could leave if it's not offered. And I don't want the district to lose $30,000 either, That's a fine line.
That would leave if it weren't offered or weren't offered in the right place.
If it weren't offered to them. The one family I'm thinking of, the mother teaches in Odebo, and they could get into the program there. If they take their TK, they're probably going to take their other student also.
Right.
They're not going to have one in each district.
But that child would be one that would be going to the Wall Lake site for it, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, when you talk about this family, do you think they would be willing if it was offered to come to SAC?
Yep.
Okay, so it isn't an issue as to where it's
No.
at, it's just whether we offer it or
Yeah.
not.
If they don't meet the cap,
Right.
they have an option,
Right.
but we're the loser.
Mhm.
Did we have a year between the half-day program and the full-day program, or there was just one section? Or did we go right to two?
No,
sections?
there was one section.
There was one section.
First year is full year was one,
Yeah.
right?
You went
We ran
half,
van,
you went a
didn't we?
half year
Special
for
van.
1 year, and then you went a full section, just one section
A
for
full
that
section.
next year, and then that's where you,
And some did bus up here, correct? And some are busing up here this year. So,
To try to get some balance in there, remember, right?
how do they get here?
In a van.
Don't we run a van, like what
Last
you
year
were
we did a
suggesting?
bus, this year we did a van, because we only got 3.
Yeah, that's on your,
How many came up that there was enough for a bus?
Last
For
year,
last year?
Was it 9?
It's probably just over the limit we could put in a van probably.
Yeah, I think it was 9. if I remember correctly.
And didn't we line that up so they left Wall Lake when school day started for the rest of the students?
we worked very hard to,
Make this guy do it work.
so parents, they basically would never know
Right.
that
That's
they
what I was
weren't, that
getting
they
at.
weren't going to that building. They came to that building, they left that building, and they were back in that building by the time
So
parents would pick them up.
So it was a slightly
So-
shortened day.
It was pretty seamless.
You
They
never
lost,
know.
they lost a little bit of time
A
at
little bit
school.
of time at school.
But for the parents, it was seamless, basically,
Yeah,
right?
it's-
That's what
yeah,
I thought I
exactly.
remembered.
Mike, I'm gonna ask you, on this, I'm confused here. These 3 that's, that
Those-
Angela has now, right? Where are they gonna go to kindergarten next year? Or where are they gonna go next year?
They,
The 3 that-
if you go across the sheet, they're in Wall Lake.
They're
They're
in
added
Wall
in-
Lake's number
they're in the
here
Wall Lake
at
numbers, yeah.
45.
Yeah.
So, what other information do we need to be able to make a decision? I mean, we can't make a decision tonight, so,
What else do you need to ponder between now and
many,
April?
many questions. I mean, I think I have it figured out in my head already. I don't know what you guys are thinking. You guys are thinking that you've got it figured out, what you think you want to do. We've obviously got the audience here to answer questions if we need any other questions answered.
Maybe we can move on down the line.
Yeah, I think let's do that. Let's move to, we want to talk about kindergarten, first grade, fourth grade. I think we should talk about kindergarten. And as far as I'm concerned, that goes right along with TK. We have one section of TK. We take a teacher from, that we had at TK, we move that to the kindergarten. Split that in half.
Because we're working on a number of 26 tentatively,
Right now.
knowing that that can change, but,
And will change,
you know.
probably. Personally, I think that, and we've got plenty of teachers here to tell me yay or nay, but I think the younger a child is, the more attention they need. If they're in kindergarten, even first grade, you know, they need a little more attention than a fourth grader. And I understand that different classes require more attention.
We want to start them off right, and that's,
So what questions do we have about the kindergarten situation with 26 kids? I mean, 25.
This year.
This year, last year. I'm sorry.
And last year, our kindergarten sections in Wall Lake were,
23.
It was 2 years ago, we had
2 years.
23 and 24.
Right.
you know,
But
did you like that?
I wouldn't say it's been my best year of teaching.
I'm not
For the
comfortable.
student or for me.
26, that's my 2 cents on that.
So, I don't know, you guys have any questions about that, or what are you thinking here?
Would it be doable with associates to good, or I mean,
Yeah.
but hard to tell if there's gonna be any
I think I understand where you're
That
going.
makes a big difference if there's IEPs and those kids are one-on-one and they have, I mean,
Yeah.
that takes the number down to, or,
26 kids is way too many, but 13 is almost not enough. That goes back to what John was
The
talking about,
numbers.
as far as the budget goes.
The other thing, though, to remember too, if you're equating an associate with if it's a one-to-one associate, that associate's primary responsibility is that one kid. You're not getting a mileage out of the teaching of reading and math and whatever. It's another adult in the room, but that's pretty focused, so I wouldn't say if you put an associate in there that you can divide it by half and on attention for kids. Now, if you put an associate in that isn't identified with an individual student,
Then that's different.
it's better, but it's
That's right.
still
It's
not the
still
same
not
as having a
compared.
teacher.
And I think that's kind of what the third and fourth grade here did with trying to,
Split it out.
we have an associate that is, I think this is what Lisa's saying, that this associate is not attached to anyone, she's an associate for the classroom,
Right.
and
yeah, I was talking in addition to the
Oh,
one-on-one.
it's additional, oh, sure.
Yeah.
So we're
I mean,
saying-
if you
I
have
understand.
one-on-one, you need, I mean, I
Like if we have two
understand
kids
that.
with IEPs, they both have, or whatever.
They both have their
They have their
one-on-one,
own,
but
then we have another
then
one
you
plus
have
the
another
teacher.
one.
A
What's the
classroom
cost for a full-time
associate.
A class,
associate?
yeah.
15?
Yeah, probably 15, 18.
You also want the associate that can handle teaching kids.
Oh, I understand that.
You want a
Yeah.
qualified associate, not just somebody walking off the street.
Because sometimes it's more.
Yeah, because you have to babysit the associate and your kids.
Oh, I understand that.
That's a bad position to be in.
Yeah, because when you have to teach an associate the things that you're teaching your kids.
And I
makes
think
it
that
more work.
by the way you're talking, it sounds like somebody has, more than one person has experienced, been in that position.
Associate's a challenging position, obviously, and people haven't been knocking down our doors saying, please let me be one.
Right.
I think every year we advertise for,
Multiple times usually during the year, just trying to keep the pool available. We get about 1,000 of them, Is there additional information you need to ponder as we move forward towards April?
And I keep going back to what, I don't know who said it earlier about how many parents would be willing to move kids back and forth.
To give our kids the best.
Yeah, I mean, if we can move 6 kids and either way, go either way, reduce the number from 22 down to 18, that makes things much more manageable. And I don't know if we've explored that with parents yet. And I know that's another nightmare to try to get that.
well, and again, we did ask, I just didn't include that information for you.
But I don't mean just with the TK, PK,
Oh,
and
yeah.
kindergarten, I'm talking first, second, third, fourth.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I don't know if any, I work with a guy who sent his kid up here to Sac City. I mean, it wasn't a big deal to them. And
I have a
mean,
friend from Wall Lake
Yeah.
that said the same thing. She said, I would send wherever my kid needs to go. She's got, I don't know, first or second grade, I can't remember. And then she had a 4th grader this year. And I've asked her, because I'm like, we hear that people aren't gonna be real happy with it, but there are actually more people that are, I was quite surprised. She didn't care if they came at the,
And I think you posed the question in somewhat of a sense that, instead of your son or daughter being in a class of 26, they could possibly be in a class of 18.
It's messy to do, but yes, we can work to see if there's, when I say we, I really mean Mike.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Does that mean that same child would go, K4 all the way through, or would we be flipping them back and forth, or I guess?
You can't answer that, I mean.
Right.
I can't imagine that flipping them back and forth would be good.
Right, I could understand if you say, okay, this is where you go to school, you go to Sac all the way through, or you go to Wall Lake all the way through, that probably wouldn't be as big of a deal. But if you're thinking about flipping a kid back and forth, I just,
No, it's a good clarifying question,
Madam
Sarah.
President.
Thank you.
Yes.
I don't see anybody in here old enough to probably remember this, except for maybe Mrs. Miller, so, and I can say that
I did an Arthur too.
because I'm her adopted son. But, when Lakeview, Auburn went together, every elementary student from Lakeview had to go to Auburn 2 years in K through 6 to get the sections to balance out. Same thing we're talking about 30 years later, 40 years later. So I got chosen 3rd and 6th grade. Yeah, the first week was a little traumatic, but by the time, the second semester rolls around, or the second week, you pretty much roll with it. Is it ideal? No. But at that time, it was the same thing that we're talking now. Do you want a real small section and 2 big sections, or do you even them out? Ideally, the family would say, yeah, I'm good with it. But then there was no choice. You were there twice, and
That's a good point, I think
so
we
this
all.
isn't the first
Time this has
time we've
happened.
done it.
And you've actually
I've
experienced it.
experienced it, yeah.
I think we all forget how resilient kids are. You guys work with them every day. And do I want my child to do that? No, but, if that's what we need to do, that's what we need to do.
I'm thinking of my 3rd grader right now going, what? My friends? But.
And it would be a lot harder on the 3rd grader than it would be on the kindergartner, probably,
Correct.
because.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about doing it, it potentially could happen here, there, and everywhere for the next however many years until we decide what we're doing.
And I'm not proposing, and I agree 100% that what you say would be much better. You make your choice and you're there.
Well, and I think also there's some certainly studies out there that moving back and forth at the elementary for a year can be up to a loss of a full year in academic performance. And so flipping back and forth, I just don't think wouldn't be a good consideration. So going back to Jay's thought, if we were to explore moving parental okayness with moving and whatever direction it takes us, we'd really be talking about in kindergarten, 1st grade, and 4th grade? Is that what the numbers are telling us?
How about instead of moving kids though, we do the whole section in one building or the other, so that all the kids are, you know what I mean? Because then you're not.
That's an option.
Because then say a teacher from Wall Lake brings her whole section up here, they get to mesh, and then next year, that's not what we need, so that teacher goes back. Would that be better than just 3 or 4 kids out of every, if there were room at both sites to even that out and bring those teachers together to teach together?
And bring the whole section of kids?
Like we talked about possibly the 4th grade, how many 4th grade teachers do we have down there? 2. Coming here with the one that we have and wherever you fall into place next week. And bringing them here and then just like that, but do it with the other grades that we're talking about too. And maybe our 2 teachers go out, whatever.
My reservation, and what I just said, just my perspective is, what we're doing is changing elementary schools for 1 year, because then they go to the middle school the following year. And if it has to be, it has to be, but I just couldn't recommend that as being good practice if we have other options, because of the transition from one building to the next.
Between 4th and 5th.
Well, 4th and 5th is going to be the normal one. They're no longer in elementary. I'm saying when you shift kids during the elementary age, the stuff I've read, that can have a real adverse effect on student learning. And it starts catching up in the 2nd year. But just doing it for 1 year, we want to think about that carefully.
I think the question that Jay asked was a good question to to ask the parents. I don't know if it'll help us or not. But I mean, if we're, if we're talking about moving the 4th grade, because we have 24 kids in this section next year, or 3rd grade, I'm confused when I look at these numbers. But
That's next year's number.
That's next year's.
we've got 20 and 22 and a half, and 20 in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in Wall Lake, so, you know, there's not much difference there. So if we're talking about moving them, let's talk about all 4 or 5 grades.
So what are you directing us to do?
Good luck with that.
Or to investigate or to get you more information? I just want to make sure that I'm clear in what you would like us to explore.
What would it be like? This is just, might not make any sense. You might shut me down while I'm saying it because it might not make any sense as it comes out of my mouth. But what about going up to a certain grade and having all the teachers and all the kids here and just making that change now and have it stay like that? Say 3rd and 4th grade is always down there, 3rd, you know what I mean? All teachers, all kids in one
In
building.
other words, you're suggesting consideration that this would be, I'm making the stuff up, but this would be a K-2 facility and Wall
Something
Lake
like
would be a
that.
3-4.
Right.
Educationally, I think teachers would love that. Transportation costs are gonna go 8.
Right. How real is, you know, in the next 5 years, where are we gonna be with who's going where? I mean, that's a very real thing
Right.
that nobody wants to really, you know, I get that, but
So the answer would be is certainly that's a possibility.
it would definitely help, you know, with the whole calendar issue that we're talking about and the teachers wanting time. I mean, that, I can't imagine that, I mean, that would help that tremendously.
Well, I think the collaboration between teachers and the grade levels, they'd love to be under one roof. I don't think there's any doubt about that being a positive.
So what about that? What do you guys think about that? Brent, what's it gonna cost us for transportation?
I don't know about the transportation part, but, I mean, I do have some things to say. I've been trying to keep quiet.
It's your turn, buddy.
Because, I guess I scribbled down some notes here. I've been trying to get a hold of this myself since the last meeting, trying to figure out exactly how to put it. I don't really know. But what I've scribbled down here is, I've been on the board for 12 years. And every hiring I've ever done has been for educational purposes. Every time you hire, create a position, or position somebody retires, you replace it. That's good educationally. Every time that that's happened, it causes a burden financially. So when you start talking about creating these positions that should exist, might exist, whatever, you start looking at things that you now burden us more financially. Now, last year, we just talked about it, half hour ago, we talked about adding a section or whatever, and I remember we hired somebody, correct? And then a meeting later or two, I think, we had the band people, music people come in and say, we want to keep a position or something. Maybe I'm off a year, maybe I'm not, I don't really know, but it was last year. So the way that transpired is we did not fill that position. Now, when you look at our finances, last year, or over that year that we're talking about, we basically lost $100,000. Now, if we would have not hired the position we hired for, I think it was 4th grade, is that correct?
want to just raise your hand. Go.
I'm sorry, I tell you, I know it's personal, and that's not where I'm going with this. I'm just saying, it's one of those deals where, okay, that, if we wouldn't have hired you, educationally, obviously, kids would have suffered. Everybody understands that, and there's nobody in here who's not gonna say that. But financially, instead of losing 100 grand, we'd have lost 50. So, that was something we decided to do. I voted on it. I'm fine with it in general, but the problem becomes is when the band and music people came here and asked for a position, we said no to that. The board did. It wasn't just me, it was the board. If we just said yes to it, this year we'd be $150,000 down. So now, what scares me is, I hear kind of what the board's been talking about. I see where the needs are, and I think that some of those things are true. But if you start hiring 2 or 3 people, I gotta go back to my original statement I said at the last meeting, we're already, not that the school board makes money, that's not the point, that's not what education is about. But you're talking about making exponential changes that are gonna carry on down the line. To where, right now, this is not only an educational decision, but it's a financial decision. Whether to hire 1 person, 2 people, or 3 people for this situation. The problem becomes, is if we only look at it, well, on the educational end of it, obviously, hire them, because we need them. Great. Pretty soon, and sooner than we think, maybe before I'm off the board, we're gonna be looking at making every decision only financially, because you're gonna be under the school budget review committee or whatever, which I've never been involved in, don't wanna be, and they're not gonna tell you, they do care how many people are in 4th grade, they do care who's in pre-K, PK, they get all that stuff. But they're gonna sit back and say, your staff is 87, and you can only afford 70. So they're gonna put it back on the board for a year. And if you don't come out and figure out that your 87 staff is down to 70, I'm just using numbers, the next year they tell you, here's your 70. So when we start talking about hire 1 or 2 or 3, it just accelerates when we don't have a choice on whether we're sending a teacher or a 4th grade section up here or back and forth. There's gonna be no options. It's gonna be only financial decisions. That's it. It's not gonna be educational too. It's gonna be, you're out of money, you can't fix it without firing people, closing buildings, and moving on. So, my biggest concern is, it's the fine line of what you can afford and where the needs are. And I don't know, we're already past our deadline for putting out pink slips for any teacher in the district, any administrator, anybody. So if we hire people now, our financial position will be less next year. There's no fixing that. You can't fix that because creating staff can only be replaced with equal or declining enrollment with eliminating staff in other place. You can't continue to create staff. I didn't make those rules up. They've been in force since 1973. That's just part of the rules. Everybody's dealing with that, same stuff. So I hear what everybody's saying here tonight. I feel for little Timmy in 3rd grade. I get all that stuff. I just have no idea how you can possibly afford it. And the more people we hire today, the quicker we will not be doing any educational decisions. It'll all be financial. And that's just because that's what's going to happen. And I don't want to be involved in that line of logic. I'd like to be able to think it through. And I think so far right now we're doing that. But when it comes right down to it's only math and it's only dollars with the math, we don't even actually get to make those decisions. They'll tell us we're making them, but they're going to tell us from the higher end of how it's going to go. I'm scared about the financial situation in this district. Do we have money? Yes. We had a lot more money a couple, 3 years ago. And we're not doing anything to make sure, that's all. We've done a lot of things to stop the loss, I guess, or to show our budget's better than it is. We're fixing things, but if we hire one person, 2 people, or 3 people here, I just feel very, very scared about the decisions we're gonna have to make next year and the year after. One teacher for a year is 50 grand. One teacher for 5 years is 250 grand. It's a lot of money, a lot of big decisions, and I really want the board and the administration and the public to know that you just can't look at little Timmy in 3rd grade. And I'm not saying we're doing that, I'm just saying, you know, you gotta look at everything else. The reason why these sections are bigger is because we offer a lot of vo-ed classes. We offer a lot of Spanish. We offer a lot of band. Those are the reasons. We offer a lot of things to a lot of people. Now, if you want to sit back and say, well, all right, Timmy's got to have 22 people in his section, then maybe his older brother doesn't get to take industrial tech next year because the program's got to go away. That's just an example. I'm just saying.
That's the reality of it.
That's the reality.
Right.
And there's no way of fixing that. We're strapped with rules from the state of Iowa, rules of how much we can tax you, rules of how much we can spend. And I just want every board member to know that that's where I see it. And I want the public to understand that as best they can. The administration struggles with it. If Mike wasn't here advocating for these kids, I'd be mad at him for that. But there's still issues with how to fix that. And on one end, it's easy, you can hire people all you want, but hire you up for a year, then fire you and 2 people above you, two people that have been here for a long time, because now we have to. It's the sad truth of it, and I don't want to have to do that. I want everybody to think about both ends. Educationally, obviously, we need 3 staff. Financially, you can't afford any of them. Matter of fact, we need to get rid of a couple. So, staying even, the way to go, I don't know. I'm just telling you that if you make only worry about little Timmy in 3rd grade, his older brother and his younger sister and everybody's gonna suffer because you can't just look at that. And I don't have the answers by any means, I don't. I'm just saying that that's the reality of what the school board has to look at, administration's been looking at, and what the public needs to hear. And they're not going to want to hear any of it. I get that, but that's the truth of it. Now I've said enough. So.
John, as we look at enrollment numbers, we've got 90 graduating. We look at what, 50, 55 coming in?
And
Well, I just said there's
60. We're talking about in preschool next year.
Well, but it's the 5-year-olds we should be talking about.
Because that's the full
They're
count.
fully funded.
That's 86.
It'll be 86, so it'll be down,
Be down just a little bit.
yeah. But we're also at the tail, we have about 120,000 in reorganization money in the budget yet, that will go away now. This will be the last shot of that.
We said all along, the real concern, I mean, the stuff that was done financially last spring, again, is working like we anticipated that it would. But we also said that wasn't necessarily a one-time, it's a multi-year approach to this, which is just condensing what Brent was saying. The real concern, and we have to look forward, and John and I have been talking about it for months already, is 15-16 school year. Next year, can we survive? Absolutely. But part of the other discussions that are going to be taking place in reducing operating costs, i.e., are we going to stay with 4 buildings? All of this is
It all goes together.
intricately linked. And those are all things that are all out there right now. There's some big stuff. But my concern isn't for next year's budget. My concern is 15 and 16. because we are going to lose some students.
And that's, when are we gonna get on that? So that we're not sitting here having to make the decision between financial and education. Not that, but when are we gonna really set things in motion as far as cutting down operational costs? When is that ever gonna happen? Because then we're put in a better place to not have to say, we can't, sorry, classes are gonna have to be 24, sorry, we're gonna cut 10 staff. I mean, what could shutting down a building, wherever it may be, when does that happen? How long do we talk about it?
I personally think we've been talking about it for a long time. I think it's something that needs to be talked about. I think it needs to happen sooner than later.
Let's be honest, even if you were to make the decision this spring, you wouldn't reduce the building until the following year, because you just wouldn't have time to get it done.
It's a process.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
At the earliest.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I think I agree with everybody. We need to take some hard look at that kind of stuff. I mean, because it all revolves around, if you can put K3, K4 all in one building, you can use your staff better, okay? If you can put whatever in another building, you use your staff better. I mean, we don't have these problems with upside down numbers in classrooms.
Mhm. It helps in lots of ways. And I'm not, I know that this can't be done overnight, but I am huge on getting that going, because this all goes hand in hand. It really does.
Oh, absolutely.
And we can only talk about it for so long. I mean, we gotta do something, because I want what's best for my kids. I mean, if we become a district that can't offer anything because we're financially sitting so bad, why would I want my kids to go here?
Right, and that's not happened yet.
No, I'm just saying,
That's my goal.
but when you
It did
talk,
not
that's
ever have
scary,
happened.
that's
Oh,
scary to
yeah.
hear,
Yeah.
but it is very
It's
real.
scary.
It's very real. I mean, and if we're concerned about what it's gonna do to the communities and people, it's gonna be a very tough subject, we all know this. If we're letting that delay, whether or not my child or your child, has an option of if we're letting that stand in our way, we can't. And maybe it's not, but I would love to say that.
And I think that's a really good point. Obviously, there's gonna be some emotion in it. But
Some?
There's emotion in this though,
But as big of a decision as that is, we can't do that justice by jumping forward and making that decision tomorrow. And I don't think you want to make the decision tomorrow, but I think you want to make it, maybe by the end of the year.
If we could do something
July
and
1st.
have a plan, so that next year is our planning year, and we put it into play the following year, wonderful. We just have to do something. When did the first committee get started? 2011? Toured buildings? Nothing has happened.
We've been gathering stuff for 2
long
years. To
time.
answer your question about when is that going to happen, is really up to the 5 of you. Not to be blunt, but I'm way too old not to be.
But we're
It's-
sitting here and talking these, and how much of this could be fixed by that?
That's a good question. I'm not sure that this would all be fixed by that.
It would be improved.
It would be improved. I'm not sure that everything would be fixed.
And I think I'll just throw this in as, we have a work session coming up, getting back into this and whatever date it is.
21st.
Thank you, it's in the calendar somewhere. One of the things that, that would help that process move along is if the board considers some guidance on specific configurations and locations, because we're to the point, we can project what the potential savings are
They're projections, but we can give you a pretty good idea. But again, I guess I say this not just for the board, but for the public as well. When we get to that point, then you also have to factor in what are your additional costs. So what may seem like $250,000 cost, depending on the building, because of the lay of the land and where we live and transportation costs. On surface, yeah, you're gonna save 250 grand, but then when you get beneath the surface, that's more like 100 grand because you've just put back in $150,000 worth of transportation. That's how this is gonna pin out. But we gotta quit talking about it and let's get some numbers in front of us so that you can make a decision would be my recommendation.
I agree. I think we had at a meeting talked about that too, and I know the calendar has taken, I
Yeah, it's
guess.
been a little busy.
But I believe at one meeting, you guys were gonna, once the calendar gets decided on, wasn't that kind of, did that get officially written up? The
Well,
questions as far as what numbers would look like if we moved to one building versus blah, blah, blah.
I think we have a list somewhere that we'll start
Can go
working
by.
on soon.
I think this is all an important discussion, but I think what we need to do is we need to get back to task here. We need to figure out what we want to do as far as, and I mean, what we want to do tonight is get information. You know, we can't make a decision tonight. So do we have enough information to, at the next board meeting, say, this is what we want to do with TK, this is what we want to do with first grade, this is what we want to do with fourth grade. I think that's what we need to worry about tonight. Because even if we make this decision at the next board meeting, that doesn't make any difference on if this building's open or this building's closed, because they're not gonna be closed for another year anyway.
So what about fourth grade? Do we really touch a whole lot on that? As far as individually?
Well, we never got to that one.
I don't think we got to that one either.
And that was one of the combination ones this year with.
And that was not working well.
Scores have gone.
Not improve student
I guess
achievement.
it's third grade.
It even probably hindered some achievement.
I think the record, or it showed that scores went down in some areas. And I would hate to see that happen for, well, like my third grader, who is a part of that now, going into fourth grade and then going backwards.
Okay, so I'm a little bit confused. Let me ask a question here. On these numbers that we're looking at right now, we've got, for next year, we've got 25 students gonna be in fourth grade.
Is that
Is that
In
correct?
this building.
Yeah.
And currently, we have 1.5 teachers.
Wanda's a shared, she works in both third and fourth grade.
So,
Yeah, just,
Yeah, that's why I listed it as 1.5.
yeah. And I understand that.
she should be one.
Right, so there's 1.5 and 1.5. Right, okay. So that would be, actually, that would be 24 for the size in third grade also, right?
Say what, Chris?
There's currently 25 in third grade.
Coming up to fourth grade next year.
22 fourth grade, and
Right.
there's 30
There's
36
37 going to be in third grade next
second
year.
going into third.
Yeah.
Which we have 2 teachers. No, we just had 1.
1 and 1.
So actually, it's 1.5 and 1.5 for third and
Okay,
fourth grade
okay.
on your paper there.
I
And
got 3 teachers.
so the
for each
average-
grade.
This one's right.
so the average size.
That way, that's easiest.
I was looking at this one, I said 2.
And now you're talking,
Oh, okay, I see this on that one.
Right, so next year's third grade,
Next year's third grade would be 36,
and,
which
Right.
really
and,
doesn't leave us many options at all.
and the kids that are in that class, talk to any teachers. They need 2 teachers.
The struggle that I have with that is look at the third grade in the Wall Lake School. I mean, there's gonna be 23 kids per class, and there's 2 sections there.
And the classes are very similar.
Are they?
As far as size.
So do we hire another one there and have 15 kids in a class there? I mean, I don't.
Good question.
I don't see that as being an option.
So do we do 1.5 again when the teachers are saying that that wasn't enough? And just say that that's what
One and a
we're,
half was with 25 kids. You've got
36.
37 with needs beyond what our 25 had. So you got 12 more kids with higher.
And you're saying the same could be said for Wall Lake?
And you're talking about a kid and a half.
Oh, you mean per section?
There's 24 per section, would be 24 per section here and 22 and a half there.
So we have. Is 30, 39, 39, 72 altogether.
What other questions do we have?
As far as merging the 4th grade, can you explain that a little bit to me again? The whole, a year is kind of a bad, back to that. Are you saying that that would be bad in 4th grade as well, since they're going to a new building in the next year, or it would be easier to do in the 4th grade?
No, 4th grade would be, this is my perspective based on reading, not a ton of articles, research articles, but the ones I have read really point that when you change within the elementary grades, buildings, that first year is kind of a wash. And then the kids they're settling in, they're coming back academically the second year. We had this, you weren't on the board yet, but we had the discussion. My suggestion last year was that if we were to move grades, it should be moved to 3rd grade so that they would be in the building for 2 years
Gotcha.
before they go to the middle school.
So would that be like saying, when 5th graders go over to that, it's kind of a
That's
year of transition?
It is a year of transition, and now
Gotcha.
you've added another one the year before they go to the middle school.
Right,
if you go to
making it
4th grade.
hard.
Not that it's insurmountable, but that you gotta have that
Yeah.
on the plate as well.
Yep.
That makes sense?
Yep.
Okay.
I don't know, do we get together again at, we have, the next meeting is,
April 14th,
It's
we'll have
budget.
a public hearing and a budget meeting, and then April 21st, we have scheduled a work session.
21st.
21st of April.
Regular meeting.
A work session for facilities and operating costs. And then a regular meeting after that. And maybe, depending on what we come up with for a calendar hearing in between, right?
Possibly. I mean, tentative, that's how we want
That's
it.
how we're looking at it.
So how comfortable do you guys feel with what we've talked about tonight, and whether or not we'll be able to come up with something to vote on for sections?
I was feeling a lot better until Brett gave his spiel.
Good one, Brent.
Oh, I'm
Well, I'm pretty comfortable with my thoughts right now, but just like I said the other night in the actual school board meeting, I really don't have much say in it. I can't make a motion. So I am the guy.
Just so you know, and I understand what Brent's saying too, because I know the school board budget review committee comes in and gives you a year, and if you're not done, then they dissolve your, they'll take care of things, and that, it tears on an administrator to try and make decisions based on finances and education too. And I always have felt that I try to make recommendations that also keep the budget in mind, because I too am very concerned about unspent balance and where it's going and where it goes in the next couple of years and loss of students like Jay was talking. So we'll do, at the elementary, we'll do the very best that we can to help both sides of that, because I know we all want well, we want to survive and we want to keep going as a district, so.
And just to clarify too, is that you know, anytime you start talking about budget, I can about imagine the discussion that may take place out in the universe. The financial condition of this district right now is on very solid ground. It's on very solid ground. And we've stemmed the tide, at least we believe at the end of the year, we will stem the tide of the declining loss of budget authority. That's what we did all the stuff last year. The problem, of course, is that if you just level that off and now you add, and that's really what Brent, again to paraphrase Brent, if I do it incorrectly, stop me, but if you add additional expenses, now instead of having a level line that we've worked very hard at and there's been sacrifices made, you start that downward trend again. But I don't want the public sitting out there thinking that the ESAC County is going to close its doors next year, because it's not. We're in great financial shape right now, and we've worked very hard to be in that position. But we have to be smart as we move forward and balance all of these things. Brent, was that a paraphrase?
Nope, that was perfect.
The Department of Management hasn't come out that I know of with the final fiscal year 13 unspent authorities. But the latest estimate that I printed was in January. They estimate our district between 1.9 and 2 million.
What was our cash then, 1.3?
And we
to
were a
match
little below that in cash.
Okay.
And that's why next month we'll talk a little bit about a cash reserve
Right.
levy. But the 1.9 or 2 would be right in line. We're about a $10 million general fund budget. And we want to look at, according to the state, 10 to 20%. So we're at 19%, you know, we're at the top part of that, and that's fine. But what Brent's talking about is the trend where we were 2 or 3 years ago. It was much higher than that. It was closer to 30%. So, yeah, don't go home and think we're going to close the doors. We're not. But what Brent says is right on target, in my opinion. We have to be careful how we go forward. Is that fair, Brent?
Yep. So unless there are any other questions about sections, I think we've been here long enough. I think we should.
And I think it was a good discussion, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I mean, you guys obviously offered a lot of help.
You guys have anything else you'd like to add to it at all? Nothing at the tip of your tongue there, Dallas?
You know, I've got questions, but you know what? Everyone's got questions. The other thing I have to say is I teach first grade. And 6 years ago, we tried 25 with one teacher, and we found out like in October that it didn't work. And so then that's when I got hired. And we tried half-time, but then it worked better with the two, with all the reading that is going on in first grade and the critical year of first grade. So I know we tried 6 years ago to do the 25, and it didn't work. I'll support that with just, you're talking about if you have kids that have strong foundation in kindergarten and first grade, you may not be talking about having to have 2 sections of 25, a section.
All the way through.
By the time they're 4th grade, if they're given what they need at a younger grade, I mean, that is something. Not that I wouldn't like 13 kids in my class, that's, but I get it.
Yeah.
It's good. I understand. It's a good point, Dallas.
And then I had one thing, I was thinking about if we're talking about putting the 4th grade sections together, not that it would be ideal, but you're talking about making more than one transition. Maybe for 1 year, a transition could be, not that I want to lose you, Dallas, but 4th grade at the middle school,
Well,
then you would have one transition, they would come together. I mean, that would just be a creative option.
5th grade coming back.
I like that idea much more.
Well,
If we're
I
throwing
was,
things out there.
I was a watchdog dad in the 5th grade a couple of weeks ago, and I was there as a dad. But obviously, I'm a school board member too, so you know I notice things. And the kids in 5th grade are so much different than the kids in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Yes, they are.
yes.
It's like they're babies there. I feel like you, that's how I feel.
Well, and
They're so
And,
little.
I mean,
They're
we've
so-
got daughters in the same class, and so when we're thinking about fifth grade daughters participating in the same activity as eighth grade,
Right.
not.
We know what that's full of.
I mean, there's just so much outside education that happens between those, and so, I mean,
Well,
I guess that,
I think that that's.
something to think about.
And we're getting a little off task here,
Right.
so I think that's a discussion for another time. Thank you for your input. Unless the board has anything else right now, I think we should end the work session. Thank you.